there, and the video there.
I
Ah,
like it. How's it going,
we got
man?
it. Good, and you?
Good. I get jealous every time I see your background.
Yes, yes, I'll tell you. Got to be happy about something, you know?
That's something to be happy about, my friend.
It is, isn't it? Took a lifetime, but we made it. It was
I
quite
love
the
it.
journey.
I love it.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. We had
Good.
I'm in Michigan today, and we had a rainy, stormy day, but I don't mind. We don't get, it's not crazy storm wise here, so I kind of like a good thunderstorm every once in a while.
Well, we just got through with one this weekend, and last year, typically Santa Barbara, where we live, probably 20 inches a year. We got
Yep.
86 inches last year.
Wow.
And we're pushing 60 this year. So there's a lot of people kind of hanging onto their properties up here in the mountains where I live, going, please don't slip away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was in Dana Point. I don't know, 2 months ago, maybe something like that. And I saw the house that they thought was going to slide down
Oh,
into the ocean.
yeah.
Same stuff
Yeah.
happened there. It's kind of wild.
That's scary stuff. There's a lot of properties like that next to the University of California, Santa Barbara here in town. And they've got these huge complexes right next to the cliffs in between, the students getting drunk and falling off the cliffs and
Does that happen?
having it happens. It
Yeah.
happens. And typically what happens is somebody's basically taking a pee over the edge and they're drunk and they just lose their balance and they keep going. It's really bad. But they have the buildings that are slipping away and they have the patios and the patio tops, and they might have like 50 or 75 people jumping up and down to loud music, and it's like really dangerous. So
Yeah, yeah,
this stuff is happening.
yeah.
Well, good. It looks like we've got a good connection. I'm on Starlink here, which is
Are you
took a
really?
while. Yeah, it took a while to get it going and make it work properly. My son and I spent one day almost about a year back, or maybe it was 6 or 8 months, and he said, "Come on, Dad, we got to fix this." So we got it fixed. It turns out that you can't have two router Wi-Fi's work at the same time.
Okay.
Starlink has its own, and then if you have another mesh like Google Mesh or anything else better, if you have them both working, it's up, down, and they're just not shaking hands, it's not working. You've got to turn one or the other off. So we
Okay.
turned off Starlink wireless because it really doesn't have the admin that a better router or mesh router does have.
Okay.
So, and that got it working great. So things are looking up. I'm not quite sure what recording or what provider you have, but the recording looks good and it sounds good. And I think we're good.
Good. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I did get some people interested in the shared housing. I have one investor that immediately, when I sent an email out, got back and said, I want to know about this. I don't know if I can make the meeting, but I said, if you don't make the meeting, we've got it recording, so we got you covered.
I was gonna say, yeah, send out a replay after the fact. That always is good for a couple more.
Yeah, now when I get a copy of that, is that okay if I put it up on YouTube?
Yeah, yeah. Put it wherever you'd like.
Perfect. Good. Yeah,
Yep.
I did some work for a solar company, and you know, I put something up on YouTube and it said, "Hey, it looks fine. There's no copyright, no problem." And then I get this letter like a month later from their attorney that said, "Hey, we're taking you down." I'm going, "Come on,
Yeah,
I'll
I don't
take it
really
down."
understand the YouTube rules. I shot a training video for a virtual assistant the other day, and I uploaded it. I couldn't send it email because it's too big, so I uploaded it to YouTube to be able to send a link. And YouTube took it down and said it violated their. They took it down twice, and I mean it was a private video. It wasn't even open to the public. You know what I mean? So it wasn't
Wow.
even like
Huh.
people could see it. I don't know. I don't know what their algorithm. I mean, it was a simple training video on how to pull data. So
Well, sometimes they won't even tell you what the problem was. It could be a mistake. They pulled me down years ago, practically 10 years ago, and they shut my whole YouTube account down completely. And I
wow.
spent, a few days looking at all these people going, "Oh, I haven't been up for 6 months or a year. This is horrible." And then I realized I may never get up. So I just created this web page that said, "Man, I'm going to Microsoft. I'm not going to use you anymore. And I'm just going to blast you every chance I get. And here's what it's going to look like. And here's the video you told me it was no good. I'm putting up that for people to look at and go, you tell me, what's the problem with it?" They won't tell me. They finally got back within days of giving them that information and said, Okay, we'll get you back on there, but just don't put that video up. It's like, really? Okay. It was a
Yeah,
meeting. It was a RIA meeting. That's all it was.
that's so strange.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that happened to me on Facebook here recently. There's Facebook marketing.
Yep.
I was putting a bunch of wholesale properties up there, and I don't know if somebody got upset and flagged me or what, but they shut me down, and I tried, to get back on that, and they're like, "Nope, we're never going to let you back on." It's like, really?
I don't get it. I don't understand what the, I mean, and then you see some crazy stuff on that stuff, and it's like that you're cool with that, but not my training
Well,
video on how to pull data.
and I dug into the crazy stuff and found out that they have some type of link that they agree with Facebook, so that as soon as people click on it, it takes them completely away from Facebook and onto their weird sites. And you might go through 3 different sites before you get to the end site.
I got
And
you.
then it's like, really?
Yeah.
That came
Yeah.
from Facebook?
Right, right.
That looks pretty crazy to me.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. So I'm glad we're doing this. I'm very happy that you know you're doing what you're doing. It looks great. I talked to my sister who has worked in social services for quite some time, about 15 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you and I both know that there's only one thing on the planet that's going to continue to go up in value, and that's real estate, because there's a finite amount of space on the planet.
Right.
All labor, all technology, everything is a race to the bottom to see, who can charge the less, and everybody else that's competing goes bankrupt in the process.
That's right.
So it's, kind of to me, well, the whole shared housing sounds great, but I think that renting the property to the people that are doing the business is another option as well.
It is. I've got several students in our group that do exactly that. I have a husband and wife team that do that rent to assisted living facilities, and they rent the CBRF, community-based residential facility. They rent the houses to the facilities, and I'm doing a deal right now in Ohio with a addiction center, and they bought their first building, and now now they need to expand to another building, but they need to grow. They need their money, 20-30% down to buy a building. That takes up a lot of their capital to be able to house people. So they have to make a decision. Do we want to help more people, or do we want to own real estate? And so we were able to work a deal with them where they're going to own like 10% of it. But they don't have to put any money down. They're going to master lease the whole thing. And it's a really cool process. It's a win-win. It's a win for us. We're not dealing with multiple tenants. They have a master lease. They're our only tenant. They deal with the people. They deal with the evictions. They deal with the unit turnarounds. But it's perfect.
It sounds to me like a commercial, what do you call it, triple net.
It is. It is like that.
Basically, they're responsible for everything, and you just have the building and you're leasing it to them.
That's right.
I love that. That's really good. Yeah,
Super.
that would be really, and then, probably getting a few people together to get the finances maybe to go in on
That's right.
a larger building as you kind of build that up.
Yep. And that there's enough margin, there's enough margin in these that it's not like having 3 partners on a $50,000 house flip, that you've got to chop that up. The numbers are big, and so it makes it makes sense to be able to bring in partners and structure it the right way.
Okay, and could you do that for a single family home and have it act like it was a commercial building?
I mean, that's what we do. That's what our community-based residential facilities are. That's what
Wow.
a lot of
Okay.
I have 2 separate clients that are in Seattle area. One of them's working with the Department of Corrections, and they're able to put 2 beds in a bedroom at like $800 a bed, so $1,600 a bedroom. And she's got a 5-bedroom house, so she's got 1,600 times 5, and the rent, and the place is maybe $500,000. I mean, so she's cash flow minimum 2 or 3 grand a month net, and if she's able to get some. There's a grant she can apply for that'll actually allow her to get more of that money. So it's pretty cool.
Well, that sounds real, real good, because I've got a tenant right now that is in social services, and he wants to get a building of his own, and he was trying to locate a fairly large building here in Santa Barbara, and Santa Barbara's not cheap. So,
Yep.
and that fell through. I talked to the person, and they were really nice in the beginning, and then somewhere, I don't know what happened, but they were like, "No, I don't want to sell any property or do any of that kind of stuff. I want to lease, and that's all I want to do." So I think what I'm going to do with him and other people is get back to them and work with you as well to try to see if we can't, latch on to some single family homes and some smaller commercial buildings, not something huge. It's
Yep.
going to take
Yep.
a major investment, and see if we can't help him in that direction because, you know, like I say, the real estate is the ticket. Ray Kroc, McDonald's, he used to say to people all the time, what kind of business have we got here? And they would
Yep.
say, hamburgers. And he'd say, no, it's real estate. It's not
Yep. Yep.
hamburgers.
Yep.
So, that's exactly what you're doing. And it sounds great.
Yeah. It's I haven't looked at a single family house in 5 or 6 years. I mean, it went from single families being 100% of our focus to virtually none. I will say, in the last couple of weeks, because of some of the stuff I'm going to talk about tonight, and seeing the significant uptick in foreclosure filings, I had a VA pull. I split time between Michigan and St. Louis, and I had her pull just the county in Michigan that I'm in. And I can send you the spreadsheet, but I would say 70 to 80% of the houses have over 100 grand in equity that are inside 30 days from being sold at the courthouse steps.
Wow.
And I'm in the Midwest, you know what I mean? That the average value is 300 grand. So we're talking about people that owe 125 on a house that's worth 300 as it sits, and they're 2 weeks away from auction. They're going to lose every penny of it. So
Yeah. And the sad part is a lot of them are in denial. They don't want to, they just think that somebody's
exactly
going
what
to
it is.
saving, and it ends up going to an auction. And I tell people, because I've worked a lot of foreclosures, the first thing I say is, hey, if you really don't plan on staying, then just don't pay anything. Save all the money you possibly can to
That's
rent
right.
something,
That's
wait
right.
till the last minute, bail out, and that's it. But whatever you do, don't kill yourself. We can get you another property, even if
Yep.
you don't qualify for a loan.
That's right.
Relax.
Yep.
It's not worth going crazy over.
Yep.
And a lot of people feel really good once they get past that point, and it's kind of behind them.
That's the truth.
Well, this sounds really, really good. I'm very excited. What would you say the best avenue is for financing and bringing in investors on this?
I
Would you
think
go?
the best avenue for financing is SBA, if it can go SBA, because they're 10% down, sometimes 15% down. Good interest rates. I haven't. I mean, I'm getting to a lot of them for 10% down through SBA, and 20-30% down with a conventional loan. So oftentimes, if we can go SBA, we go SBA, because it's a big difference. On $1 million
Huh,
purchase, you're talking about 100 grand or potentially 250,000 or whatever,
right,
or on
right.
several million, it keeps it exponentially grows. But and then we raise the money for the rest. We'll bring in a couple investors, and we'll chop out some ownership for them potentially, or sometimes just give them a preferred return. Sometimes we'll do 6% interest with another 6% when we go to sell it, or
Hmm.
a flat 10% until we refi or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get to the finish line, and in a lot of these cases where we're having a master lease, I mean, they're much safer than your traditional multifamily
Oh
syndication.
yeah, yeah. I would imagine so. This is being recorded. Is it possible to get this part of this recording as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll send the whole thing.
Perfect. That is so perfect. Well, cool. Good. Yeah, and Meetup's been pretty good at staying organized and letting people know, hey, all you have to do is register. It's free. You don't even get the link, to get to the Zoom unless you register. If you don't register, you can't go.
Yep,
And I've been telling people, can't ask questions. You can watch videos all day long, but you can't ask questions the videos,
that's
so
right.
be there live.
That's right.
Cool. Well, very good. Man, I'm very happy to connect with you and meet up and look forward to, seeing what we can do here in the future because
Same here.
definitely got some people interested. So on
Good.
the SB loans, are you getting your investors to get that themselves? Or are you going in yourself and getting the
I
SBA
mean,
loan?
my intent behind teaching to these groups, and it's like sharing with your group, is to genuinely teach people how to do this, and knowing that 70 to 80% of people are going to need a partner in some capacity. And so I want to be that partner, or at least one of the partners.
Perfect.
That's my whole mission behind it. You know, I've been on a cash flow wealth building mission for the last 5 years, as opposed to just income earning. And I can get to my goals a whole lot faster if I have a handful of people kind of spread around the country that are doing what I'm teaching them and bringing me deals to partner on, than I can, you know, working 15 hours a day trying to just stir up what only me can stir up by myself.
That makes all the sense in the world. That sounds great. So that way, if you've got some cash, you can come in as a partner
That's right.
and just keep letting that stuff develop and have those people out there, looking for the deals and work on it. And that's exactly what I'll do is I'll be out there looking for it and
I like it.
seeing if I can't pull something together for you.
I like it, man.
Cool. Very cool.
I don't know if we
So
want to wait a minute or two. We've got one person, Paul, in the waiting room. That's all that's there so far. So I don't know if we want to wait another minute or if you just want me to rock and roll.
it's fine with me. It's not like I'm going anyplace. I'm retired and, I do as much as I can to just work from the home. I spend the first half of the day, doing this kind of business. And then the
Yep.
last half of the day outside working, getting dirty and just trying to stay in health and,
I like it.
just enjoying the view, enjoying the fresh air and all that. So
I'm
I'm
kind
I'm
of in
fine.
that same boat.
That's really cool. That is so good. Good place to be. One of the things that I am trying to do is also get people acreage, 1 acre or more, nothing less, and then have them get, tiny homes, whatever, so that they can have their own water, their own electricity,
Yep.
they're off grid, whatever. Because when it comes down to track homes, if you want to be completely energy independent, you can't be that in a track home. There's not enough room for solar panels.
Yep. Yep.
It's like, wow, okay. Someplace I read that Elon Musk fast charge stations somewhere out on I-5, wherever that might have 5 or 10 of those things, to be able to have those things work on their own and give people what they need, they would need 40 acres of solar panels.
Wow.
Yeah. So factor that back down to a single family home in a track area and how you're going to do that eventually.
Yep. All right.
So
We got some
yeah,
people joining.
yeah, whenever you want to, pull the plug and get
Yep.
rolling, that's
I
okay with
can
me.
I can let people in once I switch to the PowerPoint. I should still be able to admit people. It may be a little bit harder. I'm gonna make you a co-host,
Okay.
which I think I can do. And that I think that'll give you the ability to admit people as they come in. If I'm on the PowerPoint screen and I can't see them, I think you can just click admit.
Sure. Okay. And they won't have the ability to talk or be seen, but they can have the ability to text, is my guess. Is that what's going on?
You know, I did it as an open meeting, so if we want to do some question and answer at the end, it's not a webinar in that people can't talk. I think it keeps them muted maybe until we unmute them, but my intent at the end is to unmute and answer any questions I can answer, do anything I can do to help.
Yeah. I don't know how many of these you've done, but some of the people that I've worked with have said, hey, yeah, that was great until we got their face on there. And then they just flashed up a bunch of porno on the screen and went, ha, 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 and jumped off. It's like, really?
Man, you know what, Dan? I've probably done, I don't know, 1,000 webinar meetings over the last 5 or 6 years, and that's never happened.
Never happened.
My girlfriend teaches self-development, mindset, all kinds of really cool, awesome stuff. And she was doing a mindset training. She did like an 8-week at night training for a decent sized group of people, about 100 people, and she's not super technology, so we've got a little studio set up, and I make sure it's good, and then I kind of go do my thing. And I heard her talking, then I heard her be quiet, and then I heard a whole bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have been hearing. And I looked on my phone because I keep it kind of just, I'll work outside in the garage or whatever, and I'll listen. And I looked down and I was like, oh my God. And they're smart too. So I tried to kick that person off, but they changed their name to another woman's name that was supposed to be on there. So I kicked the wrong person off. They switched names to her name. I couldn't tell who was who. So I just had I had to kill the whole dang meeting with 100 people on it because it was.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Crazy.
So they must have seen the name of the list, of other people's names and picked it and off they went.
That's what they did.
Wow. I swear there's some people that you would think all that energy and creativity would be put in a better place.
I agree. I don't even know how they technically found it. You know what I mean? But I guess such is life. Yeah.
It happens. It
Yep.
happens. Yeah. Well, I'd be happy to do that. I got to thinking after here shortly. I'm glad you're hosting this, and not me, because I have actually shut down the paid version of Zoom, and I'm good for 45 minutes. And then it goes, okay, you better wrap it up because that's all you got.
Yep.
So I'm
Yep.
glad you're doing it.
No problem. We
Good.
can we can rock and roll whenever you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, it looks like they've got the name up there, and then I see Santa Barbara for David Cruz or whatever it is. So it might show where they're from. I guess if they put that in there, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good whenever you are.
Okay. I'll go ahead and take off. I'm gonna do a shared screen here, and I'll go see if I can. Well, I'll wait 1 second.
Sure.
All right, so I'm super excited to be able to present this and share this with you guys. I'll give a little bit of backdrop on myself. I don't normally we go 90 minutes. This is going to last for an hour since it's on the web, and I want to keep people's attention and let them get back to their evening. But I started out in real estate in 2001. I opened a mortgage company, grew it up big. We had close to 100 employees. We were the #1 rural housing lender in Missouri. Did a lot of things right, made a lot of mistakes, but we grew that company up big. And then 2007 hit, and I went from being a multimillionaire to homeless in a 2.5-year period of time. We went from bringing in millions of dollars to losing 100 grand a month, and I lost $100,000 a month for 2.5 years. And I was in the place where I had to decide, do I pay my own mortgage payment or do I pay the office rent? And my decision was to pay the office rent because there was no job that I was going to go get that was going to pay for the things that I had. And so I paid the office rent. I went 120 days delinquent on my mortgage. They filed for foreclosure. Missouri is a 21-day state. So 21 days later, after they filed, I'm homeless. And it was a dark period of time. I don't say it for the sake of pity, but I say it so that everybody kind of understands. That was 2010. I had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I mean, everything bad financially that you could imagine happened. And during that time that I was wiped out, I knew I needed to figure out something new. I knew I needed to reestablish myself. I knew I needed to figure something out to bring money in. And I went to a 4-day event that was teaching on short sales, on how to flip short sales. As a real estate investor. And while you may think owning a mortgage company, you would understand a lot about real estate investing, it's really not the case. I understood everything that there was to know about mortgage banking or lending, but there wasn't any, I didn't know what ARV meant. I didn't know what after repair value meant. I didn't know how much cabinets and countertops and flooring and those things cost. I didn't really know any of those things. We didn't really read appraisals. We just ordered an appraisal, and as long as the number came in where it was, the loan got funded. So, I went to that 4-day event in October 2010, which is coincidentally the same month that my Chapter 7 bankruptcy went through. And I was at the bottom. We flipped 111 houses that very next year, and we made $3.6 million in net profit. And I share that not from a, hey, look at me perspective. I share it because no matter where anybody is that's listening to this, no matter where it is that you're starting, I'm with you. I started at the very bottom of that barrel with nothing. And if you're willing to make it work, it can work. I've flipped probably close to 500 houses since that time. And 5.5 years ago, I've been blessed to be able to travel all over the United States. All these real estate investor associations have me come and share how I flipped 111 houses that first year, how I've done, so much different types of real estate since. And I love to be able to go and share and make a difference and have an impact. And a guy that heard me speak, a student of mine in Kansas City, he called me one day and he said, he had mentioned before that his goal for the year with his family was to be able to give away a house, just give away a house to a family in need. They wanted to make enough money to be able to give away a house. Now, there's areas in Kansas City that you can buy a house for $30,000 and you can put $25,000 in it. It's not going to be the nicest house in the world, but it's habitable, it's livable, it could be a nice little place, So that's what they did. They bought a house for whatever, 30, 40,000 bucks. They put 20 grand in it and they wanted no strings attached. They just wanted to give it away. Matt and his wife, and they had 3 kids. It was actually the kids' idea to do it. And so that's what they did. And it was super cool. And so Matt started calling around to nonprofits saying, hey, do you have a single mom, somebody in need, somebody that we can just bless with this house? And the woman who was the director of the nonprofit that he called said, yeah, absolutely. We have somebody. As a matter of fact, you don't have 93 more of these by chance, do you? And Matt kind of laughed and he said, what do you mean? And she said, we have a grant from the federal government to house 94 homeless HIV positive, and the money's already in our bank account, but we got nowhere to put them. We're one at a time finding a place and moving one person in, one at a time finding a place, moving one person in. And Matt said, well, let me see what I can do. He called me and he's like, Jason, there's opportunity here. That they're willing to pay almost $1,100 a bed in a market where the rent is probably $400 a month, in the area that it was in, like almost triple what market rent was in the area. And so I said, well, start looking on market, off market for a small multifamily building. And he found a 22 unit apartment building. We bought that 22 unit apartment building. We rehabbed it. We put about $400,000 in the rehab. That nonprofit signed a master lease to rent all 22 units, meaning that if you guys aren't familiar with master lease, what that means is the nonprofit is my tenant, and the nonprofit agrees to rent all 22 units from me, whether they're full, whether they're empty, whether they have a tenant in them, whether they don't. I've got one tenant. That nonprofit might have 22 tenants, but that's not my problem. They pay regardless. And that was my first intro into shared housing. We cash flowed about $8,000 a month on that one deal. We cash flowed it for 2 years. We sold it and we netted a little over $1 million in cash, net, into our checking account, into our bank account, walked away with $1 million. And I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you make a little bit more money on your flips in California than I do in St. Louis, but I've done hundreds of deals. Maybe 10 that I've done that I made 100 grand on, and the other 400 I made, $30,000 on average on a flip. We made $1 million in that transaction. I thought, how am I just now learning this after all these years in the real estate space? How am I, and why? I coach some of the most successful real estate investors in the country. I coach guys that flip 300-400 houses a year. How have I never heard this from anywhere? There's got to be something more here. And so we started to dig into it. And what I found was the government gives billions of dollars to these nonprofits, and there's nobody bridging the gap between the needs that the nonprofits have and the real estate side of things. So what I want to share with you guys tonight is something I don't believe you've ever heard before, something that I have not looked at a single family house in the last 5 minutes. Since that transaction, I've dedicated 100% of my energy. We've bought assisted living facilities. We've done addiction centers. And this isn't me owning and operating all those. This is us providing the real estate. I'll get into it in a second, but I just wanted to give a little backstory about me so you know why the heck should I even listen to this Jason guy? What the heck's he talking about? I want you to kind of know my backstory and how all this came to pass. And then I want to show you kind of what the opportunity is. And the last thing that I'll say is we have a window of time where there's going to be a significant amount of wealth change hands, probably over the next 2 years. 25%, you guys can look this up as a Reuters article, 25% of every commercial loan in the United States is set to arm adjust within the next 12 to 24 months. Write that down and think about that later tonight, and think about the gravity of that. So as you drove home from work, if you're doing that right now, or you drove in this morning, or you went on a drive, whatever, and you look at all the buildings and offices and apartments and whatever, 1 out of 4 of them, their loan is going to arm adjust within the next 12 to 24 months. Okay, so what? What does that mean? What that means is there was record lending in 19, 20, 21, 22, record commercial lending in the history of our country, the most amount of loans that have ever been funded in the history of our country on the commercial side. Almost all of them got a 3-year arm, a 5-year arm, a 7-year arm. Almost all of them, a hefty percent, probably 75, 80% of them. So what that means is all those people that got a 2.5%, 3.5% interest rate, they're going to arm adjust, and they're going to arm adjust up to 7 or 8%. And when that happens, they're going to go from cash flow positive or break even like they were, and they were counting on appreciation. They're going to go to cash flow negative, and they're going to go cash flow negative a lot. And when they go cash flow negative and they can't pay their payments, they go into foreclosure. When they go into foreclosure and everybody hits foreclosure at the same time, values on these things tank. We're going to have the opportunity to buy at an incredible price. It's already starting to happen right now. So I share that with you guys because the most amount of money that I've ever made in real estate investing was during the last market shift. And while this is unfortunate for all those people that are going to lose, there's nothing I can do with that other than try to teach people how to help others out of those situations and try to teach people how to take advantage of the situation that's right here. And it's going to be here for a short amount of time. So I really want you guys to listen tonight. I really want you to pay attention to this. I've made more money on these types of transactions than I have in all the other years combined. And so I want you to understand the gravity of it. I also want you to understand the opportunity that's in front of us right now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. If I can find my PowerPoint. All right, and then I will do slideshow and we'll play from start. You guys see that? Can you see my PowerPoint? We good? Cool. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So what I'm going to share with you guys tonight, number one is a cash flow model that's better than any other cash flow investment type that I have seen. I know I mentioned some big numbers earlier, but you can do this on a 4-bedroom single family house. What I'm going to share with you tonight, you can do this on a 50-unit apartment building or any number of combinations in between. It's also a quick cash model. If you want to use it as quick cash, I'm using it for cash flow. I've been focused on income earning my whole entire life. And when I saw this first deal, when we cash flowed about $8,000 a month, I'll share those numbers with you in a second. I said to myself, you know, I've been a coach and a trainer and taught people how to invest in real estate. I've made a lot of people into millionaires. I had my first deck of millionaires this last year that became a deck, meaning their net worth over 10 million. I never ever taught single family rentals, and I'm not making anybody wrong for that. But what I'm saying is, you know, I've got clients that have $5, $10, $15 million real estate portfolios in single family rentals. And on average, they're making about $150 a month net, real net. I don't mean on paper, but taxes, bookkeepers, after all that kind of stuff, that's what they're averaging on net per property. And so if I'm trying to help people exit corporate America and one house means $150 a month, call it 300 if you're doing really good. I mean, how many of those do you really need to quit your job? I mean, even for $6,000 a month, you need 20 of them. You know, you need 25 of them to get to $8,000 a month. I did one deal for $8,000 a month. So that's why I never taught that, because it would take too long. So I taught people how to do flips. They could make 50 grand a pop, you know, pay off their house, pay off their debt, get out of the job and do some smart things. This is drastically different. So you can use it as a quick cash model if you want. And the third cool part about this is, I have not had to pay personal income tax in the last 5 years. I'm not a CPA or a lawyer, but I want you to understand there's something called cost segregation that you're able to do on these types of properties. And cost segregation allows you to re-amortize the depreciation schedule on the real estate, take it as a deduction right now. And so instead of paying tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in taxes, depending on what that cost seg is, you can eliminate your personal tax. Now, talk to a CPA. I'm not giving legal advice, but what I'm saying is I have always had a 5 to 6 figure income tax bill in the real estate, you know, at the end of the year. I haven't had to pay a real estate tax, or I haven't had to pay an income tax bill in the last 5 years since I've been doing this. And I want to point that out because it's what the wealthy people do. I also want to quickly say one of the biggest mistakes that I made in real estate investing is I generated a lot of leads on the single family side. And a lot of those leads were apartment buildings. They were deals like I'm going to share with you guys tonight. They were deals that I didn't understand. And I don't know, maybe I was afraid of them because I had just gotten wiped out. Maybe I was afraid because I didn't understand how to analyze them. Maybe I was fearful because I just didn't know what they're worth. I didn't know how to run the numbers. I knew the single family world really well. And so I just passed on all this stuff. And so I just want you guys to think a little bit differently in that, you know, if you own half of a deal that makes $1 million, that's still a whole lot better than 100% of a $40,000 flip. And so think about this in the terms of like, how can we make this deal work? How can we take the deal down and not just pass on it because it feels a little bit outside of your comfort zone? In addition to what I told you guys about 1 out of 4 commercial loans going to ARM adjust in the next 12 to 24 months, we also just have a really uncertain market right now. We've got a stock market that's up and down. You know, people are betting on it to crash. Will it crash or not? I don't know. I'm not a predictor of the future. What I can say is that if 25% of every loan is going to ARM adjust, and I don't know, 20, 30, 40% of those default, which it's already happening right now, we're in for a bigger mess than we saw in 07. I mean, the banks can't, unless the government steps in and does something, it's a mess. Residential is all over the place. I had a student that I've been working with for 4 or 5 years now who's in Oregon, Eugene area. And he told me on a call today, he had some new construction projects, some development projects and stuff. Not a whole lot of them, just 2 or 3 projects. And he said in between, he had hoped to get them done in 6 months. They took a little bit over a year. From the time he started those projects until now, the value had decreased by $1 million across the 3 projects. So like, I'm not preaching doom and gloom. I'm just saying that like, it's uncertain, right? It's kind of all over the place. Multifamily's in a real weird space right now. I evaluate one of these deals probably on a daily basis, and almost every single one of them that I'm evaluating is cash flow negative at the list price, meaning that if you buy it for what it's listed for, you're going to lose thousands of dollars a month. Who would do that? Nobody. So it's this really weird place, and all that's kind of starting to topple in real time right now. So I just want to point those things out. I've made $2.3 million in cash. I have over $100,000 in net monthly cash flow, and have built almost $8 million in equity on the last 3 transactions that I did in this shared housing space. I don't know where else you can do that. I didn't know it existed 5 years ago. I don't think really many other people know that it exists. And so I'm excited to kind of get in. I know that's a big claim. I'm going to get into this and show you where that comes from and how it works here in a second. So what do I mean by shared housing? The first area that I'm going to talk about, I'm talking about 7 different areas that you could potentially use what I'm going to teach you tonight. I am going to be teaching a 2-day event, 2-day virtual training on how to do this on April 20th. I believe it's the 26th and 27th. I'll tell you at the end. I'd love for all of you guys to come. I'm going to give you as much as I can possibly give you tonight in this hour. I can't possibly teach you how to do everything that there is to do in this business in an hour. I can't get through all of it in 2 days, but we'll get through a lot of it in 2 days. So I just wanted to let you know that. I hope you're taking notes. Dan's going to send out the replay. But I want you to know that if this is something you're excited about and something that you're interested about, my goal is to teach a handful of people and a handful of markets around the country that I personally want to invest in, and be able to be a resource, be able to be a partner to help take these transactions down if you need one. So the first area I'm going to talk about is assisted living. And I want to show you some of the numbers behind this because it's kind of crazy. There's currently 835,000 Americans living in assisted living facilities. Here's the crazy part. That number is going to double by 2030. We're in 2024. In the next 6 years, the amount of people living in assisted living facilities across the entire country is going to double. So I want you guys to wrap your mind around that too. Like when a market shift happens, when something changes, you know, for a nationwide statistic to even move by 4 or 5%, that's pretty incredible. You know, like a national statistic to move that much, like that doesn't happen all that much. It's going to double by 2030. So even if every builder in the country started building assisted living facilities, I don't know that we would be able to build enough to house all the people by that time. 2.5 years ago, I bought a 94-bed assisted living facility in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I live in St. Louis. Just to help you understand the trajectory of this stuff. When supply goes down and demand goes up, price goes up, right? So everything else is uncertain right now. It's not really moving, or maybe it's even declining in some areas. When I put that assisted living facility under contract, we were getting $3,075 per month per bed. Okay, you guys with me on that? $3,075 a month per bed. By the time we closed on it 6 months later, that had rose to almost $4,000 per month per bed. just to the time we put it under contract to the time that we close. That's how per bed. So that's an extra almost $900 a month times 94 beds. It was an extra $100,000 a month in income just from the time we put it under contract to the time that we closed on it. It's pretty crazy. By 2040, the 85 plus community is expected to triple from 5.7 million in 2011 to 14 million. So this is why it's important to know the trajectory of things in our country, because this is where opportunity lies. This is where opportunity is. And so that's assisted living. Now, people say, well, I don't want to run an assisted living facility. That fine, don't. There's a couple different ways to do this. You could take one house, and I'm going to show you some examples here in a minute, but you could take one house and we net about $1,000 a month per bed. Medicaid lets you put 2 beds in a bedroom. So even if you had a 5-bedroom house and you put 2 beds in each bedroom, you could net somewhere between $8,000 to $10,000 per month on one house. So I share that with you because you don't have to have this big facility. If I had to do over again, I probably wouldn't have bought a 94 bed. It's been a lot of work. I probably would have started with something, a 20 or 30 bed or even one house, something like that. But I want you to know what the opportunity is or what the possibility is. If you don't want to be the operator, I have several of my clients, several of my students right now that are securing the real estate, and then they're leasing that single family home or that small building to the assisted living facility. The assisted living facility would rather spend their money on marketing, on bringing in new clients. Like, that's how they get paid. If they have to put 20% down on a house, that's money out of their operating budget that they don't have. Same thing with a lot of these nonprofits. So I kind of want to explain to you why too, but I want you to think about at least the assisted living. The other 6 I'm going to show you are much more passive than assisted living, but you can make the assisted living side passive if you want. You're not going to make quite as much, but you'll still make probably double or triple whatever you would get from traditional rents. I mean, it's astronomically higher. All right. The next one that I want to talk about is homeless. I shared with you our story of our 22 unit in Kansas City that was homeless HIV positive. The government gave something like $8 billion just within the last couple of years, kind of during the COVID thing, to help with homelessness. So that money got distributed to all these different nonprofits around the country. And I have probably, not exaggerating, probably talked to somewhere around 200 plus directors of nonprofits from California to Baltimore over the last 5 years. And almost every single one of them says the same thing to me. Jason, I've been at this job for 13, I've been the director here for 13 years. Why has no one like you ever come across my path? And it's very rarely that I hear something like that. But anytime I hear something like that in a business space, like, sirens start going off. Like, this is a huge opportunity. I don't know why no other real estate investors have figured this out, but they're going to, and I'm teaching this, and they are. And so if this is something you think you want to take advantage of, I strongly encourage you to come to the 2-day, understand how this works, and get this figured out right now while there's no competition. As I've run thousands of homeowner appointments in my career as a real estate investor. The thing that used to frustrate me the most is when I get to the house and they say, well, we've already got 7 other offers. What do you want to offer? And I'm kind of like, I don't ever want to get in a bidding game with 7 other people. I have made millions of dollars in real estate investing by getting in front of sellers that everyone else isn't in front of, by thinking of new marketing ways to reach sellers that other people aren't. This is an area that there is no competition in right now. Nobody's playing in this space. And so we have a limited window of time before that shifts and before that starts to happen. In 2020, there were 580,000 homeless in the United States, 30% of them with children. Current homelessness is the highest since 2007. Congress passed $9 billion CARES Act to house homelessness permanently. I have never been this crazy passionate about real estate guy. A lot of people freak out when I say that from stage because I'm teaching real estate investing, but it's always been a vehicle for me for freedom. It's always, that mortgage company I told you about, I was an absolute slave to that business. I was at the office at 5:30 in the morning. I left at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. I neglected my family. I neglected my relationships. I neglected myself. I missed holidays. I missed birthday parties, all for this dream. If I work really, really hard right now, then someday I can have this great life. Real estate investing has allowed me to live a life where I can wake up in the morning I'm not punching a clock. I'm not going to work for the man. I'm living life intentionally now. You know, I don't have to wait for someday. I can do those things now. And I share that with you because I always kind of felt, you know, we flip a house. I felt like I was doing something good, but I didn't really feel like I was making a difference. When we took 22 homeless people off the street in Kansas City and gave them a nice place to live, and everybody's grateful and everybody's thankful. And now full time, I mean, most of my day, every day I'm spent working with people in our group, with different nonprofits, with different situations. And I'm making a freaking difference. Like these people need help. Like, what if there was something real estate related that you could genuinely make a difference, genuinely help people that need help, and get paid more for it than you did for the thing that wasn't really even near as exciting? Like that's the space that we're in right now. And I also put a little note on here about veterans because that's an area that's super important to me. I have a lot of military in my family, and I don't think anybody that ever wore a uniform deserves to not have a roof over their head. And we have a lot of that, and there's something that we can do about it. We're working with a lot of veterans associations in a lot of different states to help, and we're making a huge difference. So I just want you to kind of grasp where some of these different opportunities come from. Department of Corrections. I was just telling Dan before we jumped on the call. I've got several different people inside of our shared housing group that are working strictly with the Department of Corrections, and these are people that are transitioning out of prison, that are transferring back into normal life, and they need a place to go. I just had our group call on Tuesday of this week, and one of my students in Seattle, they're working with the Department of Corrections. The person comes out, they're paying $800 a month per bed, and they can do 2 beds in a bedroom. So even on a 4 or 5 bedroom house, you're talking still probably double or triple rent wise what you would be able to get for a similar type property. And your market, the pay is probably even higher because your rents in real estate are higher. But I just kind of wanted you to grasp it. The other thing that I didn't share is that the nonprofits, in most cases, they're paying for the unit turnovers, they're paying for the repairs, they're paying for all kinds of stuff that I've never gotten as a traditional landlord. The nonprofit on our 22 unit, they wanted a security system, and they sent me the invoice for it. It was $17,000, and I was kind of like, oh God, we don't have 17 grand budgeted right now to pay for that. And they're like, oh no, we're going to pay for it. We have it in our grant. We'll pay for the whole thing. They paid for a $17,000 security system, and guess who owns it? Me. I own the building. They paid for it, but we got to own it. They paid for all the unit turnovers. They restored every unit back to where it was. We didn't have to do any evictions. We didn't have to kick people out. We didn't have to mess with any of that. We just got to collect the master lease check. So definitely an area to pay attention to. I also have another client, different client in Kansas City, who is a police chief for Kansas City Police Department for like 40 years. And he's doing the same thing with Department of Corrections, and he's doing awesome. Each year, 700,000 people return home from prison. 9 million are released from county jails. More than 10% of those are released are homeless just before or just after prison. So this is another very real situation that our country needs help with right now. There's money to help with it, but the people that have the money don't know anything at all about real estate, and they're not bridging the gap. Why don't we be that bridge? Why don't we be the opportunity to help somebody and get paid for it at the same time? Recovering addicts. This is another big one. Well, I'll share it. I'm sure everybody on this call has someone that they're connected to in some capacity that's had problems with addiction. I grew up in a farm town. My mom was a nurse. You know, my mom didn't drink. My mom didn't smoke. My mom didn't do drugs. I don't know that I've ever saw my mom drunk in my whole life. Maybe I saw her drink a margarita one time, but like that just wasn't her jam. You know, like that just wasn't for her. And so I wasn't really around that a whole lot growing up. But my brother, he used to get really bad, debilitating migraines, like to the point he was probably 9 or 10 when it started, to where he couldn't even see, he couldn't talk. It was horrible. And so my mom, you know, my dad bailed. My mom has 3 boys. She's trying to raise us the best she can. She's a nurse. So when my brother can't stop these migraine headaches, she would take us out and load us all up and take us to the emergency room. and they would give him Demerol or some sort of painkiller to make it stop, and it would stop. I mean, you could watch his face go from excruciating pain down to like, oh my God, I'm back to life. You know, I mean, you could see it happen. And this went on for months and months and months. She went to all these different doctors, tried to figure out what was causing it. Eventually, somewhere along the way, some doctor put him on opioid pain medication. And this was, you know, this, like I said, this is 20 something years ago. So that was when they were good and they were non-addictive and all the stuff that the drug companies sold. And he got addicted to them. He got addicted to the painkillers. And one day he didn't have painkillers. He tried heroin, and he's been on and off heroin addict for the last 20 years. And it has been, it's been a lot for my mom, for me and my brothers, for everybody around us, because he's the greatest guy. I mean, he's give you the shirt off his back. He's the greatest guy on the face of the earth. But when he's messed up, when he's using, he will rob my mom. You know, I mean, he would steal money from my mom to get high again if that's what it took. And so this is like a really real thing that affects really, really good people. And we're able to make a difference. We're able to do something about it. I am in the process of closing on a building right now, working to close on a building right now in Ohio with an addiction center. And they're able to pay $120 a week per resident. And we can do between 2 and 4 residents per bedroom. Like they don't want to, they don't want the people to stay, they want it to turn, but they're going to sign a master lease for all the units with 2 to 4 beds in a bedroom. Our cash flow is absolutely insane. It's going to benefit them. We're going to give them a small percent of ownership of the building too, so that they can continue to grow. But just a super cool thing and we're helping people and we're making a difference. We're changing lives. But 85% of people with addiction problems relapse within a year of treatment. So this is a super real thing that even after rehab, 85%, go back. 21 million Americans suffer at least one addiction. Only 10% receive treatment. So this is another area that I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but what I'm saying is our government throws money at the problem, and it's not always super easy to fix. So again, all these nonprofits, all these addiction centers, they get the grant money, but they're not allowed to buy real estate with the grant money. So that you guys know this, most of the grants don't allow at all. We're working with Volunteers of America on some different things. They can't use the grant money to buy real estate. They can only use it to pay per person rents. And so they stay in this perpetual cycle of receiving grant money, but they never learn real estate because they're one-off trying to place people. We can change that. We can do something different with it. Another area is college kids. I have some students in my group that bought a 300-unit apartment building in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, about a year and a half ago, and transitioned it into, I don't want to say dorms because it's not really dorms, but what they were able to do is, you've got a 3-bedroom apartment building, a 3-bedroom apartment that would maybe rent for $2,000 a month for a 3-bedroom. And they're able to charge $1,500 or $1,600 per bedroom. And it's got 3 bedrooms. So they're able to raise that rent from $2,000, whatever it is, to $4,000 or $5,000 a month, times however many 3 bedrooms are in that 300-unit building, by transitioning it over to shared housing. I had a girl in our group that just had a 2-bed, 1-bath house that she was getting $1,200 a month rent from inside of our group. And she said, I didn't even think about this, Jason, but couldn't I just transition my rental into shared housing? And I'm like, why not? Call the university that's up the street and ask them. They paid $875 per dorm room with 2 beds in a dorm room. They don't have a kitchen. They don't have a washer dryer. They don't have a shower. It's just like a room. It's like a bedroom. They're paying $875. Why wouldn't they pay $875 for a bed in a house where they have a kitchen, they have, a basement, they have a backyard, they have all those things. So she got rid of her $1,200 a month tenant, and she put 2 beds in each bedroom. So 4 total beds at roughly $900 a month. So she raised her rents from $1,200 gross to $3,600 gross just by shifting over to what I'm teaching. Like it's astronomically different. Not only did it triple-ish the gross rent, but it probably 10x the net cash flow, because all that additional money, that's all profit. The majority of that first $1,200 was covering her rent, her mortgage, and everything else, and she was probably making a couple $100 a month in cash flow. Now she's making a couple $1,000 a month in cash flow. So I just I hope you guys are driving with this. I hope you're kind of wrapping your head. I know I'm going fast. I'm trying to give you as much value as I possibly can in an hour, but I hope this is resonating with you. I hope you're getting excited because it's pretty crazy. Only 22% of university students live on campus. 16.7 million live off campus. Occupancy is at the highest it's been since 2018. It's at 95% in student housing buildings. 8.6 million students per year need housing for near a college campus. And this is interesting too. The country's 175 largest colleges can only provide housing for 21% of their undergraduates. So that's what's going on here. I mean, this is why this is a problem. Battered and abused women, another area that grant covered. And so I'm going to dive into a couple of these here in a second in a little bit deeper detail, but as I'm presenting, I want you guys to think about, who do you know that knows someone in any of these spaces? Because what I'm going to teach you to do is drastically different than what any other form of real estate investing that you've heard. I'm not going to have you go look for real estate first. I'm going to have you start creating some relationships first. And I have a step-by-step way that I've proven hundreds of times overnight that you're not going to have to do yellow letter marketing, and you're not going to have to cold call sellers and do all this kind of stuff. This is significantly easier with significantly higher results. Foster kids is another super important one. When I'm talking about children that are aging out of foster care. And I want to be clear that I make sense to you on this too. I'm not talking about you running a foster care, okay? I'm talking about putting you in front of organizations that already work with foster children that just don't have anywhere to put them. We're providing the real estate on a master lease to them in most cases. So we don't have to get licensed. We don't have to. Now, there are some rules and regulations and things like that we do need to go over. I'm not going to be able to get to that tonight, but I mean, there are things. Don't just go out and buy a house and cross your fingers and hope that this is going to work for it. There's a process we have to go through to make sure this area, this neighborhood, make sure there's no HOA restrictions, that kind of thing. But it's absolutely doable in the majority of places. You just don't want to find out after the fact that you can't. 224,000 children exit foster care every year. 20,000 left foster care in 2020 without reuniting with their parents. Only 50% will reunite with their family. I mean, these are troubling statistics, but this is the reality. I mean, we can pretend it's not real, but it is real. This is what's going on in our world right now, and these people need help. They need help, and we can be the provider of the real estate. We can help take them off the street. We can give them a nice place to live. And we can get paid more than if we were dealing with traditional tenants that can afford it. Like I can't get over how we're able to help and also get paid for it at the same time. So I want to talk about that 22 unit that we did, and I want to explain to you kind of how the numbers break down. Okay. I first want to tell you that this was my first shared housing deal. I'd never done a deal like this before. It landed in my lap on accident. Had my student that I was teaching how to flip houses, had he not had it on his heart to do something good and give a house away, I wouldn't be sharing this with you today. For the last 13 years that I've traveled around the United States and taught people how to become millionaires through real estate investing, I have always said from the front of the room, I like real estate, but it's not why God put me here on this earth. I'm not like crazy passionate about it. I don't wake up in the morning and think, oh my gosh, I get to rehab another house. I enjoy it, but I'm not crazy passionate about it. It's always been a vehicle for me. And I've said from every stage across the country that I've spoken on, if I found something that made more money in less time, that's what I would be teaching. And in 14 years, I have not taught anything else other than the same training that REI Blueprint, my company REI Blueprint, has taught ever. I've never sold anything else. I've never trained anything else. I've never taught anything else until just within the last 12 months when we decided to share this shared housing program with a handful of people. I'm not on a RIA tour going around the country teaching this. I'm teaching it in 10 different markets, period, and I'm done. And this is number 8. So we're about at the end of the road. But I want to give you the idea of I want to show you what the numbers broke down to on this, and I want to explain them. So this was the 22 unit apartment building. We bought it for $250,000, and people say, how in the hell did you buy a 22 unit apartment building for 250 grand? I'll tell you. In a lot of these cases, we're able to get significantly higher market rent from a nonprofit than what the market actually yields. This was a D class building in a D neighborhood. it was off market because they had listed it for 2 years. Nobody wanted to buy it. You want to know why they didn't want to buy it? Because by the time they paid the purchase price and the rehab, and all they could get was $400 a month in rent, they would be cash flow negative. So we're able to take properties that no one else can do anything with and make extraordinary profits from properties that other people don't want. And that's exactly what we did. We put 400 grand into it. We had a master lease for $25,000. And so I want to share something with you. I know I told you when I introed tonight that our cash flow was a little over 8,000 and this says 6. I want to tell you why. So every deal that we do, we figure 8 to 10% of the gross rent for property management, whether we use property management or we don't. I build it into every deal because guess what? I don't want to get calls at 11 o'clock at night that a toilet's leaking or a sink's leaking. Or, I sometimes these properties are in other states. We always budget for property management. That's 8 to 10% of the gross rents. Okay. So that if the gross rent's 25 grand, that means 2,500 a month in property management. Okay. We budget 6% for repairs and we budget another 6% for maintenance, CapEx type things. So that's another 12%, call it 10, call it $5,000 a month. So there's another $5,000 a month that we're budgeting for repairs, maintenance, and property management. That nonprofit took one of the 22 units and gave it to one of their staff employees to be an on-site manager. I didn't pay for that. They're paying for all 22 units. What they did with it was on them. They hired somebody to staff and be there on site to manage the property. We didn't have to collect rents, so there's no property management involved in collecting the rents from 22 people. We only had one tenant, which was the nonprofit. They paid for 100% of the repairs and maintenance because it was included in the grant. So out of that extra 5,000, call it $1,000 a month, maybe that we paid for, random things, CPA, bookkeeper, that kind of stuff. We really had another $3,000 or $4,000 a month on top of that 6 that was net rent. We got it at the end, but it was there because we didn't have to pay for those things. So I share that with you because I think a lot of people could come fairly close to quitting their full-time job with one deal that netted them 6 to 8 grand a month. I know it's not the end, the end of the world, but how many single family rentals do you need at $300 a month cash flow to get to what that one deal yielded? Oh yeah. And by the way, we made $1 million net profit when we sold it 2.5 years later, $1 million, little over $1 million. And we were able to do cost segregation and get a really significant tax credit off of our taxes at the same time. So all of these things happened. We rolled that $1 million into another investment property. We could have taken it as a paycheck, but we rolled it into another one. So that's just one example of what we did. The next one I want to show you, because this is a little bit different. This is an assisted living. This was an assisted living facility I shared with you that we bought. 94 beds. The guy that owned it was a nurse. He started it 30 years ago. It's a CBRF, which means community-based residential facility. So when you think 94 beds, your mind probably went to like a hospital type building. It's actually 10 residential houses in a subdivision. You'd have no idea that they were assisted living. You drive by, it's a normal house in a normal subdivision. But it's 10 houses in total, 94 total residents. One of the houses is an old monastery, so we've got 22 beds in that one. And the others are between, 7, 8, 9 beds each. And that comprises the 94 beds. The guy that owned it had owned them for 30 years. His daughter was developmentally disabled, and 30 years ago, him and his wife started touring assisted living facilities to find a place to put their daughter. And they couldn't find a place. He was a nurse at a hospital. She was an admin in a hospital. They couldn't find a place. And so one day they said, why don't we just buy a house? Let's put our daughter in the house. Everybody knows us from the hospital. I'm sure we'll get a couple more beds filled up, and we'll have one house, and our daughter will be there. We'll be in charge of the care. We'll be in charge of everything. We'll make sure she has the best of the best. And within 30 days, he had all 8 beds filled. That was the very first house that they did. Within 30 days, they had all 8 beds filled. Then they bought a second house and they filled that one up. And then they bought a third house and they filled that one up. And over the course of 30 years, they just kept adding houses and houses till whether they got to 10 houses and 94 beds. And one of my students that has been a client of mine for close to 10 years called me one day and said, "Hey, I was at a networking function. I met this gentleman that wants to sell an assisted living facility. It's a cash flow deal. Are you interested in it?" And I said, "Show me the numbers." So I'll kind of show you what the numbers were. We bought that 94 bed for $4.1 million. He never put it on the market. He never did comps. He's not a business guy. He wasn't that. He owned it for 30 years. He made plenty of money. He tried to put his 4 kids in charge of it. They kind of started running into the ground. And he said, "You know what? I just want you to write me a check." And the reason why he did 4.1 million is because he said, I want to leave $1 million to each of my 4 kids. And the $100,000 is to cover the closing costs and everything. That was his reason behind the price. When we bought it, it already cash flowed at $80,000 a month, net cash flow. But here's the crazy part. Every single comp I pulled back several years. Every single comp I pulled, the lowest comparables that I could find price per bed were $100,000 per bed, meaning that when we bought it, at a minimum, at a fire sale price, it was worth $9 million. So I share that with you because I want to teach you and show you how to find these types of transactions. The average sales price was around $120,000 a bed, which makes the value worth $11 million. We bought it for $4 million. This is happening all day long, every single day. And I want to show you guys how you can do the same thing, even on a smaller scale, if you want to do it on a smaller scale. I also want to point out something really cool too. 8 of our 10 houses have 2-car garages. Okay. Guess what? None of our residents have cars. None of our residents have cars. So we've got 2-car garages in 8 of these houses that aren't being used for anything. So guess what we're able to do? We're able to convert those bedrooms. We're able to convert those 2-car garages into 2 bedrooms in each garage. We can put 4 residents in 2 bedrooms per house. So we get an extra 4 residents per house at $4,000 a month. It's an extra $16,000 a month in gross income, but our expenses don't really go up because our caregivers are already there. The main heavy part of that business is already there. So we're able to increase our cash flow by almost another $100,000 a month as we're adding these beds. I mean, it really is really crazy. So I wanted to show you that as an example so you could kind of understand the shared housing or the assisted living model of this. It's about net $1,000 a month per bed, 2 beds in a bedroom. So even a small 4 or 5 bedroom house, you could see $8,000 to $10,000 a month in net income just from something like that. So I wanted to give you that as a perspective. The last deal that I wanted to show you is
wait, that's it?
The last deal that I wanted to show.
Is there any
I'll do questions at the end, guys. The last one that I want to show you is a Department of Corrections deal that one of my students is doing or just recently did. This was in Kansas City. The guy that I told you was the police chief. We're able to buy a 5-bedroom house for about $300,000. It's not a super nice 5-bedroom house. It's not a completely rehabbed 5-bedroom house. It's a dated 5-bedroom house that probably needs some work. He put about $10,000 into the rehab. And when he first approached Department of Corrections, the nonprofit said, we'll do 1 bed in each bedroom. We'll do $800 a month per bed. And by the time we finished having conversations with them and talking about like a bigger plan moving forward, we discussed being able to do 2 beds in a bedroom. So that's what ended up happening. He's able to do 2 beds in a bedroom at $800 a month per bed. So $8,000 a month gross. So even at the $4,000, the net cash flow on just one small investment, one small house was $2,000 a month. He ended up closer to $6,000 a month in net profit off of one house. He's not managing these tenants. He's not overseeing the people that came out of prison. He's not, the nonprofit that's doing all that. This is automatic. This is happening just by partnering the real estate with a nonprofit that has the money and has the need. So I wanted you to kind of grasp that. I know we're running close on time, so I want to tell you about the 2-day virtual training that we're doing that's coming up here at the end of the month. If you can't make those dates, we are going to record it, so I can send you the recording. And I didn't tell Dan this, but we're going to come out to California in August, late August, early September. and I'm going to do a live training of this as well. You have to buy your ticket now. You have to pay for it because we cap the group size at 30. Every live event that I've done for the last 13 years, we've had between 200 and 500 people there every single time. We sell tickets to it. We do coaching, consulting, and that kind of thing. That is not what I'm trying to do here. I am trying to find partners. If you want to know the selfish reason that I'm teaching this, people always say, well, if you're making so much money doing this, why the heck are you teaching it? I'll tell you why. My personal goal is to go to $1 million a month in net cash flow. And in order for me to get there, I'm 20% of the way there already with these deals. In order for me to get there, the fastest path of that for me is to pick 10 markets that I want to invest in and teach a handful of people how to actually really do this business, knowing that a good handful of you are going to come back to partner on me. You're going to find a deal for $1 million or $2 million, and maybe you don't have the down payment, or maybe you don't qualify for the loan, or maybe you're just nervous and you don't want to do it by yourself. I'm not going to force you to partner with me, but I know that people will. And I'm evaluating a deal every single day, sometimes 2 deals a day, just from the group already. And so my plan is working.
Hey, I don't mean to tickle your ass here.
We're doing
are you a
deals.
millionaire?
It's doing what we needed to do. So I'm over the 2 days, I'm going to teach a step-by-step plan how you can locate existing or how you can create your own. I'm going to teach you how to find the referral sources. I'm going to teach you how to locate the nonprofits that have the money. I'm going to teach you how to have the conversation with the nonprofits that have the money. I don't want you to get freaked out. I'm going to show you the government agencies that have money to help for housing. I'm going to show you step by step exactly how this works. I'm going to talk about
blueprint. Can you go back to the last slide real quick?
1 second, guys. I said I'll answer questions at the end. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm going to spend probably 4 hours on deal evaluation. This was my biggest reason that I passed on these deals for my first 10 years as a real estate investor, or at least multifamily and stuff like that, because I kind of had fear around them. I didn't understand them. I didn't know how to evaluate them. I didn't know what they're worth. I could tell you in 5 minutes in any market around the country how to analyze a single family flip. I could tell you what it's worth as it sits. I can tell you what it's worth after it's rehab. I can tell you what it's going to cost to fix it. I had no clue on these different types of projects. And so I didn't understand how to analyze them. And so I didn't do them. I'm going to spend 3 or 4 hours so that every single person that's in that room understands how to evaluate an apartment building, a multifamily building, an assisted living facility, any of these multifamily type properties. You're going to know how to evaluate them. We're going to understand how to do income and expenses. I'm going to give you the calculator that I use.
Where's that bitch at? Sorry for cussing. Yeah, that's what happened.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Dan.
Yeah, sometimes what happens. Oh, I want to see the gifts. Where's the money? Where's the big old stack? I don't want to hear any of that other bullshit. That's what I do.
And he's
I think I agree with him. He has a point. Where's the money? I want to see the money.
Have a good night, guys.
Sorry about that,
guys. It's funny that we discussed on before we started. Most of you guys weren't on yet. We talked about hackers coming on, and I said how it's never ever happened to me, and probably 1,000 of them, and then we get 2 guys that jump on. That could have been a lot worse. All right, I'll pick back up here. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about, we covered the analyzation piece. I'm also going to talk about the licensing process, the rules, the regulations, all those kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff that you need to understand. Licensing really starts to come in on the assisted living side. That's pretty much the only one that requires licensing. But the rules and regs apply to all this. How many people can you have in a house? How many non-related people can you have in a house? How close can it be to public transportation? There's things that you need to know that if you don't know, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And I don't want you to get in trouble. There's rules to this game. And as long as we follow the rules, we're fine. But you need to know what the rules are. And I spent the last 5 years messing a lot of stuff up, making a lot of mistakes. And so I've learned a lot of the rules. I want to share them with you. We're going to cover how to analyze the metrics, how to understand management from an income expense part. I'm also going to talk about how to get the money for these deals. So we're going to talk about how to fund them, the best loan types that are out there. We're going to talk about SBA loans. We're going to talk about conventional loans. We're also going to talk about how to raise the down payment capital. If you're interested in partnering with me, I'm going to sign on the loan. I'm not just coaching you from afar. I'm going to put my name and my assets on the line. If you want to partner with me, if you can take it down on your own, I'm going to be the first person to tell you, take it down on your own. You don't need me. But if you do need me, I'm going to help raise the down payment money. I'm going to sign on the loan. I am actively trying to partner in as many of these deal types as I can that make sense. So we'll talk about that. I'll also talk to you about how to structure these types of things. You know, who deserves what from a partnership perspective? How do you determine what ownership should be if there's 3 people that come in together? What are the different buckets that deserve ownership? So we'll talk about that. April 26th and 27th, you can't make those dates. You can get it. You can still buy your ticket. We'll send you the recording when it's over. Single ticket is $9.97. If you want to add an additional ticket, it's just an extra $500 for a partner or spouse. It's 2 full days. And again, anybody that grabs their ticket tonight, when we come to California and we do it live, you get to come for free. You don't have to pay again. It's going to be August or September. Everybody will know the dates. We'll do that. But I don't want you to wait till August or September to start. And it will be full after this presentation and another one that I'm doing. So I want you to grab your ticket now. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and then I'm going to open it up for questions for anybody that has questions. So I'm going to stop my share. I'll put the link in the chat that you can grab your ticket. Okay. It's just a quick checkout page. It's $9.97 for one ticket. If you want to get an additional ticket for a spouse or business partner, you can do that add on there at the bottom. It's super simple. It's an easy page. After you do that, my office will call you tomorrow and just say hi. Alyssa or Stephanie on my team will call and just introduce themselves. They'll say hi. They'll let you know kind of what to expect. They'll get you set up for the virtual training. We've got workbooks and manuals and things like that we need to deliver to you. We'll add you to our shared housing community. We'll add you to our REI Blueprint real estate investor community. We'll add you to the email communication. You'll have some access to me. We'll probably do like an intro call or jumpstart call just because we're 10 days away or whatever before we start. So we'll probably schedule something like that. But I do have some homework that I want to give you guys prior to the 2 days so that when you get to the 2 day, you're a little bit ahead. We've got 10 days, so you've got some time to do a little bit of homework in between. I hope you guys are excited. I hope you see my genuine excitement that comes through, and that I've never seen anything like this in 24 years and being in the real estate space. I've never seen, and I've never seen a time like right now to make the money that we're able to make. So, and help the people that we're able to help. And it's going to be here for a minute and it's going to be gone. So I want everybody to take advantage of it that they possibly can. Dan, I wanted to open up if anybody has any questions. I know you're going to send this recording out to your whole group. So if anybody that's on right now has any questions, anything at all, I'm more than happy to help.
Yes, I've got a couple questions for you.
Absolutely, man.
So you do plan on doing this in California. This is your number 8, you said. So
Yep.
You've got interest in California. Do you have any particular areas of California that you are wanting to focus on? Have you spent much time analyzing that? Because I've got, a number of people who will be and are already interested in this. I'm certainly interested in it. And I'd like to know, if I'm going to be spending the time in it, which I plan to do, where are the areas within California that you would like to produce the most results?
Yep. So I'll share this with you. I am teaching for a group in San Diego in the next month or so, and I'm teaching for a group in Los Angeles. And I don't normally do these trainings live anymore, just because we're not doing the big 300 people events. I'm not trying to monetize it by ticket sales. I'm trying to pay for my room and the cost. My point in that is, because we have 3 different groups kind of along the coast in California, I thought, you know what? With that, we could come back and do a live for everybody after we do the virtual, and it'll be kind of like a refresher. It'll be a little more in depth, but I think I think it's just something cool that we can do that I don't normally do. So it'll be either end of August, beginning of September, and area wise, I know you guys are up more north. Hopefully we could maybe find somewhere halfway point. You know what I mean? That makes sense for everybody. But as far as location of where we want to be investment wise, Dan, I mean, I care less about that and more about the quality of the deal.
Gotcha. Okay, good. You know, we've got a lot of things happening between, Thousand Oaks and say San Luis Obispo, and a lot of connections going on there.
That's awesome. And you know, when you get away from the coast a little bit, these numbers get better, and you guys get exponentially more. Like a lot of the numbers that I showed you tonight were Midwest numbers as far as, you know, both real estate price, but also what the nonprofits pay. They pay significantly more. I mean, I analyzed the deal today in Minneapolis because we're doing some deals in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're not near as expensive as you guys, but the market rent was $1,600 a bed, and like in St. Louis, it might be $800 or $900. So I mean, they were double just by being in Minneapolis. So you guys are going to be higher too.
Yeah. We were just looking at an article today, and this guy in town in Santa Barbara was talking about a 1-bedroom condo that was costing him $4,500 a month.
Wow.
So you know, rents are really up there.
Yep. Very cool.
Okay. Good.
Do you have some more questions, or is that it?
I think that really is. I mean, the whole idea of being able to do this as a commercial property, even if it's a single family home, really opens it up for a lot of people. I've got some people I'm working with right now. Like I said, that's a tenant of mine, and he is doing social services in some of the areas you've already talked about, and he's looking for a building to be able to do this. And this gives him the opportunity to not look for a huge commercial building, of which, like you say, they're probably going to be a better deal anyway if you did get something that was not huge, but you know, still commercial. But even the single family homes, that opens it up in a big way to be able to do the same type of triple net or whatever commercial leasing that you're talking about, even on a single family home, which is really, really a huge difference.
Yep. I mean, it's a game changer. I mean, a lot of the people that I put through this training came to it because they're like, I've got 11 rentals that if I could double or triple the net income that I'm getting right now, just by transitioning to what you're like, that alone is worth it in and of itself for me. And we've done that now over and over and over again. You don't have to go after these big multi-million-dollar deals if you don't want to. Like if that is outside your comfort zone, you want to try something small. I don't mean you specifically. I just mean anybody. That's the cool part about it. You know, one of my students that's in Kansas City, he wanted to work with the Department of. He said, I spent the first 40 years of my life locking up good people that just made bad choices, and I want to spend the last 40 years of my life helping those people reestablish in a good place. You know, and he's just on a mission to work, and it's super cool to see. You know, and he's able to get. I mean, he's in the Midwest and Kansas City, Missouri. He's able to net around $5,000 a month net cash flow on one $300,000 house. I mean, it's nuts. He'd have to have 20 single family rentals to do that. 20 of you'd have to buy 20 houses.
Right. Well, you know, there's a lot of homeless in California, way more than most states, any place.
Sure.
And you know, when you take a look at what happened with the pandemic and the government came along and said, oh, people can live there for free, you can't even evict them. Well, if you have the government agencies paying for these people that are in these homes or buildings, the money doesn't stop. That money's still going to flow to pay everything that needs to be paid. So it solves a huge problem to, you know, go after that market.
100%. And that check clears every single month. It's never late. It's never a question. You know what I mean? We don't have to employ people to chase the money down. I don't have to play bill collector. None of that exists for the most part with these. It's really, really cool. I'm also going to send you guys, I'm also going to send anybody who got their ticket tonight. I'm going to send a recording of one of the group coaching calls we just did probably within the last 30 days, because I want you to see 30 other people that have most of them have never done real estate investing before in their life. Like, they're not these experienced investors. Most of them have never done any form of real estate investing in their life. And every single one of them has at least one deal, if not multiple deals working. Everybody's, I mean, it's nuts. I mean, I've coached real estate investors since 2012 ish. And it's not easy. You know what I mean? The money, it doesn't fall from the sky. You know, if we have 20 or 30 people sign up for coaching in a market, you know, maybe 5 or 6 of them actually do what it takes to do the marketing, do the cold calls, send out the letter, you know, really work it as a business is tough. I've got almost 100% success rate of everybody in our shared housing group that's having wins. And you can see, it's not just me saying it, you'll see on the call. I mean, I go through every single person. They talk about what they've got going on, and I'm super proud of that. I just think it's super cool. And I want people to take advantage of what's happening right now and be able to help people at the same time.
Okay, when you come, do you plan on coming to Santa Barbara and actually doing this if we get enough people to sign up? Or would you do it someplace else?
Well, I'm gonna do the virtual at the end of this month.
Okay.
But the live one that I do will be a combined of Santa Barbara, LA, and
Gotcha.
San Diego.
Okay.
And
well, it makes more sense for you to do it in Los Angeles, because I can tell you from experience, there's very few people that want to travel up the coast to go to Santa Barbara when they can be in Los Angeles and they can, get into a larger facility. And I've got some really good people that have been holding meetings in LA and can help you with those venues if you're interested.
that'd be awesome. Yeah, I just want to find somewhere that's kind of that's kind of fair for everybody to drive. You know what I mean? Like I know everybody's gonna have to travel a little bit, but at least you don't have to buy a plane ticket to St. Louis.
Right. And LA would probably be the center, from San Diego to, this area here.
Okay.
So I'll get you in contact with those people if you like.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you very much. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. I threw the link in the chat. So all you've got to do is click that link. I will send Dan the recording of this video so you can send it out to your list. I'll also send you the link inside of that so you can put it in the email and people can grab their ticket. Thank you guys for letting me serve you. Thanks for letting me share. Dan, thank you very much for having me and inviting me. I appreciate you, man. And look forward to working together.
I absolutely would enjoy, being able to work with you and do this. I can't wait to, just be part of it and make it happen.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thanks,
so much,
everybody.
Jason.
Appreciate you
Okay.
guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.